my name is Rebecca, and I'm the Online Services Coordinator. And here with me today we have Jan. I'm going to say your last name wrong. It's Grofe.
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 Close enough.
Close enough. So he is going to be your keynote speaker today for the hidden job market and how to market yourself as a newcomer professional. Jan comes from TD Bank, and he's in the legal litigation group, right?
That's right.
Yes. So just wanted to tell you a little bit more about ACCES as well, just before we start. So ACCES is we're a non-for-profit employment services agency. We are located in the Greater Toronto region. So those of you that have logged in, some of you may also be part of the Canadian Employment Connections program as well. We do have a bridging program for people that are pre-arrival and are overseas. If any of you do have your PR card and are landing within 3 months into Canada somewhere, please do contact me and I'll be happy to refer you to that program as well. So let's get started. So, Jan, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I am thrilled to be back. I've done this a few times, not as a webinar, but in person. And it's always fun to meet new people and tell them about what helped me come to Canada and get a job where I think where I'm happy to be. So I'll start with a little bit about myself and then tell you what worked for me when I was a newcomer. So my story, I grew up in Germany and I studied in a bunch of places, Freiburg, Cape Town, and in London, UK, not London, Ontario. Once you've arrived here, or if you've arrived here already, you'll realize that people often tell people London, they can mean Ontario, which when I talk about London, I never mean London, Ontario. I studied to become a lawyer in all these places. I did a couple of other things, not only law, but I eventually ran articles back in Germany. Studying in London, I met my now wife. She's Canadian, which is how I ended up coming to Canada. I had done an internship here to, get a bit of a grasp of the place. Do I want to actually move here? And I really liked it. So in 2008, in January 2008, I moved here. I hit a bit of a rough patch because coming here, I thought, well, it's not going to be easy to get a job, but surely I'll get a job. It took a lot longer than I thought. It was a struggle for me because I realized a lot of things that I thought I was doing well, I really didn't do well. I wasn't able to explain to people what my skills are. I wasn't able to explain to people why they should really hire me. So a couple of odd jobs here and there I was able to get, but nothing really to write home about. The first job that I really wanted to put on the slide here is that I then in 2009 had a job as a barista. Barista are those folks that at Starbucks make you your latte. I put that job down because to me that was my start. That's how it feels like. Birchite is a company in Ottawa. If ever you're in Ottawa, go have the coffee. It's the best one out there. Because what happened was from that job, I started getting what they call the Canadian experience, right? We'll get to that a little bit more later. But from that, I was basically picked for a program run by the government that is called the Federal Internship for Newcomers. It's called internship for a few reasons. The most important thing to remember is, though, that it's a fully paid job, even though it's a contract. And it was, in my case, a contract with Citizenship and Immigration as an analyst. From there, and the good thing for me was all these jobs were steps up the ladder, up the responsibilities, upping what skills were required, and with that, luckily, also upping what I was earning. From there, I moved on to the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, which is the Federal Privacy Commissioner of Canada. And from there, I, by coincidence, saw that TD was looking for a manager in their privacy compliance. I applied, I was given the job, and that is also when we moved to Toronto. And from there, I moved internally to the legal department 2 years later, and I've been there 2.5 years now. That's right. First thing I want to talk to you about is how to look for jobs informally. And again, like I said, I'm sharing my experiences with you. You can take them or leave them. That's why I'm telling you how I fared. And how I fared in the beginning, and that was the stretch in 2008, 2009, where I didn't get any real jobs, was I would almost only apply to jobs that were posted online. Spend a lot of time crafting my responses, send in my emails, and I would never hear again. I would never hear again. And the problem was that what I was doing was what a lot of us fall into when we start applying for jobs. We only do that, thinking surely somebody's going to look at my great CV and I'm so skilled. And the problem is, to stay with the example, in Ottawa, when you apply for a publicly posted job with the government, there would be normally around 400 to 500 applicants. You need sheer luck to get picked to go to the next round. Even if you're really, really skilled, if there's 500 people applying for one job, they might not read more than 100 CVs. It's just a fact. I then basically at some point started to focus on networking. Why? Because I, as a newcomer, had to overcome certain hurdles that I'm more able to overcome when I'm sitting in front of you rather than sending you a CV only. And as newcomers, make no mistakes, you face hurdles. It's not as easy as when you're an established person here. And the reason is very simple. Humans like to surround themselves with people that they think they understand, that they kind of get. So if you go anywhere, people like to. I'll give you the example. If you had had the pleasure of studying abroad, like I did, I went to Cape Town, and there were lots of folks from Germany. And the interesting thing was the majority of them had only German friends. Why? Because it's easier. I can speak my own language. I know exactly how you click. I know what you're thinking about when you say something. I get your references. That's the same with employers. It's easier for an employer, if you're from Saskatchewan, to hire somebody else from Saskatchewan, because I understand where you come from. You probably like the same sports teams that I do, and these things matter a great deal. So never discard that. So that's why networking face-to-face is very important. And how do you do that? Your first goal needs to be get a meeting with somebody at a place that you find interesting. So identify a place that you think is of interest to you. If you think a bank is for you, or if you think a consultancy is for you, or if you think you're a project manager for construction projects, do your research what companies are out there in the area that you want to move to or have moved to. Identify them on their websites. When you've done that, find a person that works there. Now, these days, that's not as tricky as it sounds. You have LinkedIn, you have the company website, you can just Google. You're going to find some people, and then you need to approach those people. How I did that in Ottawa, and that worked for me after a while, was you research the person. So let's say you found a project manager with a construction company, and you have a name. Now you research the person. Do they have a LinkedIn profile? When you Google them, does their name come up with other stuff? For example, if you Google me, you'll find out that I've done some academic work on certain subjects, or that I'm working with ACCES now. A lot of other people, you'll find stuff online, right? I mean, don't be a creepy stalker, but do your research and find out who you're trying to approach. Your email to them then needs to do the following. It needs to be brief, because if I get an email from somebody I don't know and it's 3 pages, I'm not reading it. I'm not reading it. Your email needs to be brief. Paragraph 1. I am Jan. I recently arrived from so-and-so. My background is I have done this and this. With great interest, I saw what you were doing, and then I have a connection to that. And then you explain what the connection is. I'd be interested in buying you a coffee to understand more about your firm, about the industry you're in, at your convenience. As easy as that. Do never mention that you want a job. And I'll tell you why. In my experience, Canadians are generally really nice. Don't give them the opportunity to say no. If you say you are looking for a job, and if you tell me that, then I'll tell you I don't have a job. I'm not the person for you to meet with. That's not what you want to do. What you want to do is grow a network. Growing a network specifically means you meet with a bunch of people knowing that the majority of them won't have a job, but they help you get in touch with other people. And once you have a network, eventually somebody who from your established network will have a job, and they might think of you. Or somebody from your network says, hey, I heard about a job in XYZ. Should I forward you the details? That's what your network is doing for you. That's what you want your network to do. So you've sent them the email. Very nice, very easy. Interested in what you're doing, can I buy you a coffee? Who says no to a coffee, right? And they will suggest a time or not. In my experience, after I had that email done, that takes a bit of work, I had about a quarter of people would get back to me. And mostly it would end up that we would meet for a coffee. That's pretty good compared to what the rate that I had before when just applying to posted jobs, because the response there was next to nothing. which basically kills your soul. That's really important to remember. When you go out to meet with people, see it as an opportunity to grow your network, to get to meet people. Take the positive from that alone, right? It's much better to go out and meet people, even if the job isn't on the table or that meeting doesn't get you a job. At least you've gone out, met a person. You don't need to come to a new place where you know nobody and then sit at home all day and write emails and never hear from the emails again. It's not a good idea. So eventually some of your emails will get you that meeting. Prepare for the meeting. I cannot tell you how frustrated I get when I take time out of my day to meet with somebody and they haven't obviously done any research. They don't know what my employer is doing really, or they don't know the recent news about something that really obviously matters to me, like the bank I am in. Or I'll give you the example. We'll get to more details about that. If, for example, I live in Toronto. In a meeting like that, your goal needs to be that you appear personable to me. You appear skilled. You appear nice. Because then I'm willing to have you in my network, and I might give you more names. Never discard small talk as unimportant. Because you can come across as very skilled, but if you come across as bossy, entitled, or uninterested in things that I care about, that's not helping me. You need to connect with me. And again, this is a theme. You don't have to like any of that. You don't have to like it, but be aware that it is very important for you to be successful that you accept some of these things. You don't have to like it, but you do need to accept it to succeed. I didn't like some of that stuff. I did it anyway, and it worked. So, for the meeting, what's the company? What's the thing you're interested in? What's happening in that industry? That's basic homework. The city you live in, you have to understand, Canadians in general are really interested in sports. Now, I come from Germany, so my first sport is always going to be soccer. That's not always the same here in Canada. Hockey is big. Baseball is big, depending on where you are, right? Basketball is big here. Even if I don't care about hockey, I know that the #1 draft pick yesterday scored 4 goals in his first game. I really don't care about hockey. I still know that. Why? Because I might run into somebody that I really want to have a good conversation with. And he might be the biggest, what's the team? Maple Leafs. He might be the biggest Maple Leafs fan. I need to know that. You need to know that. Do your research on sports, on politics. And none of this, by the way, you have to have a divisive opinion on. You just need to know and be able to talk about it. Our mayor, what's the name of our mayor in Toronto right now? Are there any big subjects right now? You might run into somebody who really cares about that stuff. The first 10 minutes of most of these meetings, you talk about everything but work. If I can't talk to you about that, you've missed an opportunity to connect with me, but you really want to connect with me. So, now, you've prepared for the chat. The chat went well. Ideally, the best outcome you can have is somebody says, well, I might know somebody who has a job. Okay, most of the time that doesn't happen. The more attainable goal is for them to say, at the end of the conversation, of course it comes to the fact that you say, you know, right recently here, and I'm still trying to get a foot in the door and with employment and all that. And they say, oh yeah, no, I get that. I mean, I don't have a job right now is what they might be saying, but I might have a name for somebody at another company. Would you like me to put you in touch with them? That is exactly what you want. And why? If you talk to me and I think you're a decent person and I want to put you in touch with somebody else at my company, at another company, then either I give you the name and you send an email to that person and you get to say, Jan gave me your name, or I send an email to that person and CC you on it. Your success rate of getting the next meeting goes up exponentially. Why? Because if they were to say no to meeting with you, they say no to me. That's a lot less likely. So that's the key thing for your first meetings. Get more names so you can have more meetings. Because that's how you grow your network. All right, so that was the first topic I want to talk about, how to look for jobs informally. And make sure you follow up with people, not in a pestering way, in a nice, easy way. For example, follow up, right? So you have a follow-up for something you talked about. But sports say, hey, they're really doing well right now. Anyway, now, next topic. What makes a good interview? 3 things. 1, you have to connect on a personal level. Two, you have to explain to the interviewer what you can do for them, not what the job will do for you. And three, connect on a personal level. So actually, I'll jump to the last. We've already talked about the connect on a personal level. I cannot stress this enough. If you are skilled, but you cannot connect personally, you will have a very tough time. Because an employee sits there and talks to you and thinks, do I want to hire him? He's going to come into the office every day. We're going to meet. I can't talk to him now. When will I talk to him when I see him every day? That's important. People need to connect with you. So that's part of what you need to make your goal. Second, professional level. Normally that is less of an issue because if you get a formal interview, they must believe that you have the formal professional skills. They wouldn't interview you otherwise. They wouldn't invite you otherwise. So don't worry about that so much. You still need to connect with them and show you your skills and how you do that. Now, a very key thing that few people learned, and I was horrible at it, I was hopeless, was how do you answer interview questions well? Well, first of all, it's a skill you learn, like almost anything else. It's a skill you learn, so you practice. How do you practice? Google the 10 most common interview questions. If you can't answer them well at home, you're not likely to be able to answer them well in an interview. This is very basic, but like I said, I sucked at it. There's no other way of saying that. I was really bad at it. Now, Google that. Practice the answers out loud. Do not do them in your head. That's not the same thing. You have to say them out loud. And you have to say them out loud, most likely in English or French. Depending what your home country is, it's all well and good. If I had done my rehearsals in German, sure, it would have been great. It doesn't help me, though, when I sit in front of somebody who doesn't speak German. So that is for you. I encourage everybody to practice with somebody who's a friend, who's a colleague, who's a family member, but in the right language. That is very important. On the subject of language, when I arrived, I had a couple of... Language wasn't my struggle, but I've met a bunch of people by now that I've interviewed myself for jobs or that are friends of mine who struggle on that level. And the problem is, where you come from, the English that you speak is absolutely excellent. You are a college or university educated person. I have no doubt that your English skills are excellent. However, if your accent is very strong, be aware that if you sit in front of an employer and the employer is struggling to understand your strong accent, that's going to be a problem. Put yourself in their shoes. Imagine if you theoretically come from India and you have somebody sitting in front of you who's from Scotland, who speaks a heavy Scottish accent. Will you hire them if you have a tough time understanding some of the things they're saying in your interview? You probably won't. Be aware of that. And I'll come to some of how we tackle some of those things later, but be aware that there's a key thing. Time and time again, that's a problem for a lot of people. Now, how do you answer any question well? It can be any of the usual questions. Tell me about a time in your life when you had stress at work and how did you handle it? First of all, one, give an example. By the way, the entire answer should be not more than 3 or 4 minutes, because if I'm your normal interviewer, I have 10 questions I want to get through. So if every question takes 10 minutes to answer, I don't have 100 minutes, right? So make sure that your answers are brief and to the point, 3 or 4 minutes. That really should be it. So you start your answer with the example of the time. So then you say, there was a time when at my job at so-and-so, I was asked to do the following. Here was the problem. I had 5 team members only. We were supposed to do this in 3 weeks. It was a gargantuan undertaking. But here's how I got it done. See what I just did? I showed you what the problem was, and now I tell you how I got it done. And then at the end of the day, what the person listening is supposed to take away is, there was a problem, he tackled it in an organized manner, he got the job done. When I'm the interviewer, I want to know that you will get the job done that I give you. That's the key thing. If I like you, and I think you can get the job done, you might now just be in the running for a job. But keep those two things are important. Now, again, if you go through your CV, pick 4 or 5 situations or projects or past job tasks that you want to use as your key examples. You don't really need more than that. most of the time you come back to actually to the same 2 or 3 jobs or projects or tasks. Those, just like the interview questions, you need to be able to tell me what is the stage. That cannot take more than 30 seconds. It doesn't have to, because if you can't tell me in 30 seconds what the problem was, then you're taking too long. Then you tell me how you overcame it. That's a minute and a half. And then you summarize. So now we're looking at about 3 minutes. That's what your answer should be. And for that, you need to prepare. That's homework. That's basic homework. It's not rocket science. But you got to do your homework. All right. And you got to say it out loud. Now, let me just have a look at my notes. By the way, notes, if you go into an interview with notes, that's not a problem, so long as you don't, as I try to connect with you and look at you, all you do is scribble. You can bring your CV, by the way, even to a chat, when maybe they want it, right? Certainly to an interview, have your own CV that you send to them live in front of your table. Makes it easier for you, and it's absolutely appropriate. Personally, for example, and again, I can only tell you what I like. To me, it shows that the person is prepared. I obviously like when people are prepared, right? Now, my third subject that I want to talk about is Canadian experience. And the key word, sadly, being Canadian. And again, I come back to the fact it's not often fair that folks want Canadian experience. But again, you have to accept it, right? That's just sometimes the game you are playing now. Now, it's not exactly fair. For example, I remember meeting somebody who was in the construction industry and had managed several large-scale constructions in, I think it was Australia. Doesn't matter really. And he came here and was struggling because they all said, "Oh, you worked on large-scale construction projects?" Yeah. Oh, but in India, in Australia, right? And that's not fair. But let's face it, that's a struggle. That's the hurdle. Now, the reason again for that simply is people, as they interview you, try to compare your experience to their own experiences. If their own experiences are so connected to the country that they're in, they sometimes are not able to just remove themselves from the locale where it happened to the basic tasks that they did, and they cannot relate to the tasks that you have done in another place. So there are several ways for you to overcome that hurdle. First, show them that you have the experience, even though it's foreign, it is still the experience they're looking for. How do you do that is you talk about it in a way that doesn't highlight that it happened elsewhere. You talk about it in a way that they understand. To come back to the construction example, what my buddy would end up doing is he would say, all right, we broke ground that date. We had to build this thing. It was a shopping center. We had a year to do it. We had that many people. We had a timeline of this. We had to get it done. I did the following. I project managed this. I made sure that we were on time. I made sure we stayed on budget. And this is what we did. I haven't mentioned a single time where it was. I haven't mentioned a single time that this was not Canadian experience. So when you set the scene, don't confuse people with too much details about places they might not know. I mean, I'm an interested person geographically, so if you tell me you did a project in Hyderabad, I might know where that I know where that is. Not everybody will, so don't do that. Also, don't tell them that my job title was so and so. Job titles are so interchangeable. Tell me what the role was that you had. Tell me what your task was. That is something I can connect to. You tell me you were the manager of the building department. Okay, I don't know what you do really. Now, so first way to overcome is make them understand that your experience, though it's foreign, is the experience of it. Second, something that often comes up is the question, should I take a job that is actually below the level of qualifications that I have or where I've worked in the past? My personal experience is that I did, and in my case, it worked. Why? First of all, though it's a lower skilled job, it's Canadian experience, right? I told you, I worked in a coffee shop. I was making coffee and latte and tea. Now, does that speak to my skills as a project manager? No. Does it speak to my character that in the winter in Ottawa, I was always the one to get to the store at 5:30 to open it at 6? Yeah, it does. I'm reliable. I manage people. I was customer facing. All of that are skills that I can now explain I have, and I give a Canadian reference for it. And I know my Canadian reference in that shop helped me get my job in the government. I know that made the difference because, in essence, the people in the government that were hiring me told me, right? They could relate to that. They understood. And also, by the way, it's pure practical considerations. Money was coming in. It wasn't a great amount of money, but it was more money than before because before it was zero. So if you want to take a job that you believe is below your education, take a job, but make sure that you find one where you can make those kind of arguments. Also, you again, it falls back on you to be able to explain to the employer why they should care about this role. In the beginning, I might not have been able to tell you, look, I was managing people. I was managing one of the busiest stores in Ottawa. I was the one that kept the place together. And everybody had a smile on their face. I've told you things now that matter in so many different industries, right? Has nothing to do with it being a coffee shop. But that was on me being able to tell you. If I can't tell you, the interviewer will not understand. So that was the second way of how you do that. The third thing, and I cannot stress it enough, non-professional experience matters a great deal in Canada. Volunteering matters a great deal in Canada. Besides it being such a great thing for you to do anyway. So, first of all, imagine, I spoke to you about the language skills. If you volunteer somewhere and it is not within, if where you come from, there's a large community in Toronto, and there's always like a large community of that in Toronto, sure. If there is a large community of that in Toronto, try not to volunteer with that community. I'm not telling you to not be connected to them, but I'm suggesting to you that you want to spread it a bit wider. Why? Your language skills will improve when you speak with people outside your community that you're familiar with. It's very important. Thank you for the person that asked me to speak slower. So know that I do that, and that is exactly it's one of those things that when I was interviewing, I had to really pay attention to. Thank you for letting me know. When you volunteer somewhere, it does so many good things for you. You improve your language skills. It is experience that you can point to. Of course, you need to now try to volunteer in a way that it would be good for you to show. For example, have you managed a project for whatever place you volunteer with? Are you helping? If you are an accountant, I met somebody who was an accountant who ended up helping one of the local chapters of a very established charity, do their books. That's great. All of that is experience that counts. It really matters. Beside the fact that it gets you connected to where you move to. We are all human beings. The worst thing you can do here is sit at home and do only emails. You need to get out. You need to grow your network because it's healthy for you because you get more human interactions. But that's also how I believe you have a higher chance of landing a job. So again, non-professional experience counts. And it also goes back to what I said earlier. If you get involved in those things, the chance of you being able to connect with somebody you chat with, you interview with, is higher. If you work with a local soccer club, if you volunteer for your local MP, those things matter great. Great on your CV, by the way. When I look at CVs, I care about those things because it helps me understand what kind of a person you are, right? That's very important. So, I think we're going to leave it at, we had a little bit more time?
Yeah.
All right.
A few more minutes.
A few more minutes of me talking to you, and then we'll get to your questions. So, sorry for that. So one of the things that I like to talk about also is people worried about being overqualified for a job. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a problem. I know I was turned down for 1 or 2 jobs when I was looking for a basic job to just pay the bills. And they said, look, you've got so many degrees. I'm not hiring you. That's okay. But at some point, some employer is going to ask you, you're very overqualified. Why should I hire you? And it's up to you to convince them. And honestly, in my case, I was upfront and frank. I told them, look, I've been here for quite a while. It's not going so well. What I can promise to you is that I'll get the job done. In my case, I open the store, I'll make every customer feel welcome, I'll help you be a welcome environment, I'll help you sell the coffee, I'm reliable, I can be trusted. Yes, if in 4 months I get a different job that is closer to my education, likely I will be interested in taking that job. But if I'm here for longer, you will have a great employee, you can rely on me. Now you've put the ball in their court. They need to make the call if they want to take that risk. I ended up being in that coffee shop for a year. I thought I was obviously hoping I wouldn't be in there for that long. But that was a year of experience, of making some money, of building my resume in a way that I now had a local experience to talk about. Up to you. Personally, it helped me a great deal. I think it's a healthy thing to do, and like I said, money coming in, it's a good thing. The last thing I'll quickly mention is the concept of transferable skills. I had a tough time in the beginning explaining to people why they should hire me, because in the beginning all I was able to talk about was my label. My label was that I was a German lawyer. I would apply for all kinds of jobs, and they would look at me like and say, I don't need a German lawyer. And that's true, and at the time I was not able to explain to them what I'm trying to tell you now. I wasn't able to tell them my transferable skills. I'm a lawyer. What does that mean? I'm an analyst. I'm very detail-oriented. I can digest great amounts of data and tell you what you need to action. I also, and that's more personal, I'm also able to explain change to people. What do they need to do? Why should they do it? Those are things that are skills connected to the profession and my training. But it's skills that are important in so many other areas, so many other professions. So if I apply for a job that is not a lawyer job, but they need those skills, if I can tell you that I have those skills and explain to you with examples where I showed these skills successfully, now I might have a shot. If I tell you I'm a German lawyer, you're not going to make that jump mentally from, oh, he's a lawyer, so he likely has those skills. Oh, those are the skills I look for. That won't happen. I need to tell you that I have those skills. That means I need to understand my transferable skills. The point is, I know too many people that are dead set on the industry that they've worked in before, even though the job they have had is not limited to that industry. If you are an experienced customer service representative in the banking world, why would you not be able to use a lot of your skills in, say, with a company like, sorry, with a telecommunications company? It's sales skills that you need, right? That's very important. Sales skills is what really matters. Then you need to be able to tell them that I have sales skills, not that you sold what you sold before, right? But that you have the skills. So transferable skills, again, homework for you. Look at your CV. Look at your CV right next to it. If you haven't done that, by the way, your CV should, your CV should tell your transferable skills. Your CV needs to say, I did X, Y, Z. The skills I exhibited here are this, this, this. Because now I read the CV and it might tell me what I want to hear. Namely that, oh, I have a talented person here who has the skills I need. Let's talk to him. Let's bring him or her in and have a conversation.
So I just really want to thank you for everything and just for your time here as well. I want to also thank Jan as well, just for presenting. This was his very first webinar that he's done, but he's a very avid, very active volunteer with us. So just really thank him for his time. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you again for our next webinar, which is happening next Thursday. So stay tuned.